And I'm gonna let him introduce himself. He's gonna be doing, his speaking is gonna be on, the Game of Thrones. Reading through frames.
Whoa, Game of Thrones. We had drones, so let's go to brood frames. All righty, good. Email in case we don't get a chance to get your questions answered. We're going to look at in terms of looking at hives and what are the things we might focus on. What might we be looking for? Are we? We are not. Okay, we're on the wrong place. I did bring some books. If you're interested, I have some books out here, some of the ones that I have. The third edition is out, and this was my COVID book, okay? And of course, then our field meeting. All right, so for our reading of frames, a couple of warm-ups. Question, what do bees do with their honey? Eat it? What does an allergic bee get? What is more unpleasant than being with a fool? Okay. They even do their honey, they sell it. Allergic bees get hives, and what is more unpleasant than being with a fool is fooling with a bee. Okay. How do you read a book? A lot of different ways that we might pick up and read a book, and I'm going to equate our reading of a brood frame as how we might read a book. So the whole hive being a book. We might speed read, we might use a Kindle, we might use any number of different methods of looking at that book. And so too with our beehives, because we're all individuals in terms of our beehives. And of course, each of the beehives is a different book. It can tell a different story, is a mystery or whatever. So let's open that book and attempt to try to go ahead and read what we're going to look at. We start by outside. We'll look at our configuration, and all of our hives might be different. They might be all the same. Commercials are going to be very much similar. So we'll look, we've got, it looks like a screen bottom board. We got two hive bodies, regular Langstroth, 8 frame or 10 frame. These look like 8s. We've got a super over queen excluder. That little bit of space is our queen excluder that's in there. And our brick on top, and also our condition indicator. So we have the brick to hold the top down, and then that little block on top as to our message that we're going to look at from our last visit. What was going on? Where was there queen cells? Is there? We didn't see the queen. We didn't see the queen. They did the super. All of those things. We can all do that with no pay. We can do it with our phone or a simple indicator there on top. So we start on the outside, looking around the hive, of course, in terms of how we have all that configured out. All right. Dead bees, skunks, different configurations, pest management history. And then of course, why we're going to the hive while we're looking here on the outside is we're starting already to start formulating, what do I need to do? Does this need another super? Are they rearing queen cells that potentially may swarm? Yada, yada, yada. All of those things that might be in our wheelhouse of why we're going to the hive and reading the hive, reading our book. Okay. Of course, we're going to have standard, at least maybe standard for us, but that's going to maybe be very different. Here we're looking at a backyarder, shed there real near close by, water for the bees. The bees up high for mice and skunk control. Commercials looking very different. Commercials are going to try to have every one of those hives on that pallet exactly the same. Whereas often in our backyard hives, you can see different paint, different structures, different, here they're at least 15 degrees different where the entrance is. So the bees are going to do less drifting from one colony to the other. Because immediately when they come out, they see polarized sun. So these are two very different addresses for the bees because they're looking at when they come out at that polarization in the sun. And of course, the different times of year they're going to look different. I don't know if your backyard looks like this. This is Minnesota, but we're going to hopefully be able to add supers, take them off at a later time, whatever. So it's going to different. So answering that question, what the standard is is standard is what we say it is, what we're comfortable with a hive configuration. No two are alike. Here's a coffin hive, a longitudinal hive. So rather than having two boxes on top, this could be one colony, it could be two colonies, it could be a colony with a couple of nukes, whatever the configuration may be. This fellow likes log hives, so he hollows out logs. That he couldn't keep these alive in standard Langstroths, so he's putting them in logs and had much better success. He was not a mite treater, he was treatment free. Here we have a top bar hive, different configuration. If you keep them initially and continue working with them, they can be a removable comb hive, as you can see here, but much more delicate in terms of our handling and our ability to take a good look in terms of brood. And eventually this bee fever that we get is going to be pretty serious. We're going to have to build a house adjacent to where we live so that we'll house our bees. Okay. So let's pick up a good book. All right. As I say, lots of different books, what we might be interested in. As we go to our book of the hive, it is always going to be a little bit different. So here we're reading a hive. Wintertime, we want to know how are they doing. So we come up and we on the hive and they buzz us back. They answer right back. Yes, we're here. Everything's okay. So we can go on to the next one. Here in a more southern location, we're reading the hive. We're reading the hive by we're taking the back of the hive and we're hefting it. Is that heft off the full or is that, just coming right up? So we're actually without intervention here, without going inside, reading the hive in terms of the weight. You can do some of the same with the debris boards on the bottom. I was just this week at a situation where the debris board was loaded with material off on one side, and it looked like comb, looked like darker comb. But why on just this one side, not along the whole side, but bees were clearing out comb for some reason just in the corner. It was really, really heavy, just almost black with all this material falling on the debris board. Short end of the story, it was small hive beetle. Small hive beetle that started there. He had started feeding the colony. They were pushing the brood down from the second box into the first box, and the bees discovered that there were small hive beetle in their colony, and they were cutting out the comb so that they could eliminate the small hive beetle. Eventually, we did see some cadavers of small hive beetle as well. So just reading the debris board, lots of different things we can get as an answer there. And of course, during the middle of winter, we can do a minimal amount of intervention, not snow on the ground here. All we're doing is taking our covers off and looking at where is this cluster? Where are they located? Is there honey adjacent? Is there honey that is in the frames that are there adjacent to the cluster? Is at this point, do I need an emergency sugar brick, for example? Because there I'm not seeing very much honey, or all the honey is over here remote from where the bees are. And if it stays cold, a cold snap, they're not going to be able to get there. And I can lose my colony to starvation during the winter because they're just not going to get to some honey that they have. Colonies with honey can starve during the winter. They just can't get to it. So an emergency sugar break. So all of these are part of reading that good book. So the mystery is what's happening in our colony in the winter. Here are several different ways to read that book during that time. But most of what we're most often interested in is Action Central. And Action Central is where the bees are rearing their brood so that the colony population will increase and sync with more availability of nectar plants, for example, and sync with the season, the growing season, and sync with increasing temperatures so that they're going to be able to store enough resources that we might rob from them, take a surplus, or they're going to have enough to get through the winter period. Okay, so let's dig in and take a look and read a frame. Okay, so this is a page then of that book. Is the hive a mystery or is it a comedy? Is it a true adventure story? Sci-fi? What kind of book are we looking into? We're looking into our hive. So here's a book. What can we read? What do you see in this book? This part of this book. What are you reading on this page? Healthy frame. Pollen. Brood. Cat brood. Yeah. Good. Anything else? Good pattern. Good pattern. Honey. Okay, look how much we can read from looking at this one part, one of the pages of the book. Okay, cat brood easily, honey very easily see. Rather than calling that pollen, I call it bee bread because it's pollen that's been processed. All right. like propolis is the process of plant resin, but we use those kind of terms kind of interchangeably. So we read a lot, but this is a mystery still. What haven't you told me by looking at this frame that we can read about this town? There's still a mystery, Mike. Wayne, how many bees are there? Look at that. How many bees are there? Some. Is that enough? No. Okay, so part of the mystery is to me is why so few adults? All right. Now I didn't shake the frame as I pulled it out. I pulled it out carefully. I mean, if you shake the frame, that's going to be a whole different part of that mystery. You're creating mystery. So there's still a mystery going on in this town. And all we're doing is looking at one page, if you will, or side of one page, side of one frame. Okay, so remember the root area is going to be a sphere. And so depending where we are in the sphere of things, our story is going to be a little bit different, or the story we should see is going to be a little bit different. So that's what we'll want to try to remember as we're doing our reading. That edge frame of the edge of the root area isn't going to have a huge amount of fruit like we just saw, or should not have. If it does, it's telling us something very different than if it's that edge frame that has just a little bit on one side. All right, so reading the brood frame, remember it's a sphere. Okay, so what does this a good bee book? Here's another frame. I'll show you another frame say, a frame from a different part of the season. But what are some of the things that we can look at and read on this one? Some swarm cells.
Very low. Honey's gone. Any food. Human fruit, no area.
So what would we concentrate on? Can we see sealed brood? That's the easiest type of brood to see, right? Yeah, we can see quite a bit. Is it a healthy brood pattern?
Yeah.
Looks pretty good. Remember, 5% to 95% of the eggs that queen can lay under favorable conditions should yield an adult. So we can see that as a capped brood. Okay. Can we see capped honey cells? Well, look closely. Yeah, not much, but there is some. Can we see eggs? Want to borrow my glasses?
From this far away.
From this far away, you can see egg. No, can't see egg. All right, so we've got to have to, like a good book, sometimes you have to get down the little fine print where there's the footnote or the sidebar or whatever it might be the case. So no, we can't see eggs. Can we see queen cups? I differentiate the cups and queen cells, the next two below eggs, cups and cells. Difference is a cup is a precursor of what bees can use to rear a supersedure or a swarm queen. Okay, so swarm colony. The cell is when it is actually the cup is occupied. Eggs, larva, or the developing queen cell. So I differentiate between the two. So can we see a queen cup?
Yes.
Yeah, there is one. Can we see a queen cells? Tough to say. There are none. Okay. So it is tough to say. So I didn't check that. Condition of the cells. I've already checked it for you. A lot of transition cells, a lot of cells that are not filled for some reason. Drone cells. Looks pretty good, doesn't it? Looks like they really knew what they were doing, what we wanted them to do. They didn't fill out the corners, but they had hoped to have a way to get from one side to the next. It didn't work because we fooled them with the Duracone, the Duracell. Okay, the plastic cells that have the Duragilt foundation. So there's a piece of metal down the side they can't get from one side to the next, but they thought that they could. Okay. How about the condition of the frame itself? Did we lift the top bar off, separate it from the rest? Is a mouse chewed on the bottom of the bottom bar, weaken the bottom bar? How are the frame at the shoulders itself? From this distance, looks pretty good, doesn't it? Okay, all righty. What happened from the last inspection? Has it increased in population? Okay, so again, season and continual look in terms of trying to see what's going on. And then here's part of the book. And we now say we need to do something as we're reading the book. Close it up, go away, put it down, read further. Okay? Like a book, right? Not interested, looks pretty good. Why do I need to read further? I've solved my mystery. Okay, whatever might be our indication that we might want to do. All from reading one frame, all right? So let's take a look at that frame. And we said that when we went through that list, we couldn't say if there were eggs present, all right? So let's go through our mental drill in terms of, we don't think there are eggs present as far as we've read into this book. This is where we're reading right now. We don't think there are. Does that mean there might not be a queen present? No eggs? Yeah, that could be. A new virgin, newly mated queen present, not laying eggs yet. Could be, because this is the brood left over from the previous queen that hasn't been emerged yet. Look at another frame. This one is filled with cells of mostly capped brood. Okay, we haven't solved our mystery on one frame. Maybe we've got to look further. Yeah. It's the end of the season or drought conditions or bees preparing to abscond or perhaps preparing to swarm. Could that be the reason we don't see eggs on this book as far as we've read? Yeah. You're treating with formic acid. Yeah, very definitely. Okay, so did you pick a right answer? Okay, so I asked this question for you on an exam. Which one are you going to pick? Number one, number three, the third one, middle one. Any others? You know you're doing the formic. Yeah, well, as you may have forgotten, or your grandkids or your kids haven't said, I don't know, all the answers look right, and this is the case. Every answer is the right answer here. So how am I going to tell the professor that I really know what's going on? So you pick the middle one, all right? So those that said they picked the middle one, you got your answer right. Okay. Higher education. So that's what we should see with eggs. Okay. Properly positioned in the cell. Okay. As they get towards the period when they're going to eggs don't hatch in bees, they mold into the next stage, of course, the larval stage. They lean over in the cells and they kind of then look flat and a little bit easier to see for us. And so that means that they're pretty close to going to the next stage. So that's what we should say. But what about this? This is great. Look at all those eggs. My gracious.
And work.
Laying workers look like, doesn't it? Too many eggs. No, that's not a good thing. Okay. So management choices, laying workers. You think we got a mystery, laying worker colony because we see so many eggs in the cell. What are we going to do? Requeen. Sorry.
Formic acid.
Use formic acid.
Shake them out.
Shake them out. We got lots of choices, don't we? There's no one way to treat all of this. The best answer for this is euthanize this colony. But we're not going to do it. Okay, we're going to try everything that we know and that we've heard, and that our neighboring beekeeper and the club mentor says, and our person we go to for all those questions, or the book we go to, going to say do something. So we're going to do something, and we're going to end up with the same result. Okay, nothing. So you can euthanize them right now, or do everything and end up with the same thing, same place. Okay. Yeah, some of these other things work for sometimes. All right. So the same frame. We say there's no stored bee bread present. Okay, it's just a very couple cells, I pointed out. So does that maybe mean there's no young brood to stimulate pollen foraging? Does that mean why we're not seeing bee bread on this frame? Why do they get pollen and store it as bee bread? To feed it to the babies. No babies? Do they store pollen? A lot less. No, so they could be. Numbers of cells are filled with fresh nectar. The cells where they could possibly put bee bread over here on the side either have capped honey or some liquid honey that they're processing that they can use. They actually don't eat honey they process it to be more dilute. Could that be the reason? Yeah, no space, we got another frame, especially frame at the edge of the brood sphere. That be a reason? Yeah, colanders or drought or heat spell. Yeah, bees preparing to abscond or swarm. Yeah, they do all that, that shaking of the queen, they grab on top of the queen, go up and down, up and down, up and down. You see that workers doing it to workers, but that's how queens lose their weight, okay? So any of these are answers, so you're faced with five correct answers. Which one are you gonna pick? Let's pick the middle one, and that's probably the best one. They've used all the space for food. Where are we gonna look for that column, that bee thread? On the edge of that sphere. That's the best way to see how they're doing for. And what we're going to look for then is something like this. The kaleidoscope of colors, and it cells filled, but then not capped. They put sort of a honey glaze over the top. And you can see with this particular pond, you can kind of see how there's like a glaze over the top, right? That's what we want to see, and we want to see that those different colors, because that means bees are going to have the possibility of a more balanced diet. They're going to get the sterols they need. They're going to get the different proteins, the amino acids to build up proteins, etc. Okay. We could go on with this. What if there's no drone cells? We'll get Julia back in here and tell us again all about drones. Okay, they're part of all this whole story. Or there are queen cells. All right, so part of that mystery then in looking at brood area is encountering these things, or looking and trying to find these things, and then looking and see if there's enough. How about this for the first mystery I had was too few adults. How about this one for adult coverage? But why are they not on the brood? It's cat brood, so it doesn't need a lot of our attention. Their attention. What else? That's a possibility. They swarmed until there are fewer adults. It is warm. Oh, it is warm. Thank you. It is warm. What we used in our inspection of our book, we used the smoker, didn't we? Because then all those bees went to honey to eat because, yeah, their flight, their preparation for flight. They're getting more in their honey stomach in case that is really something very serious, and we're going to have to flee. Okay, so reading the book. Now this one does have some drone cells. We can see the drone cells there at the bottom. Why there? Because they have modified that foundation. They got, as they were filling out the foundation, they got kind of desperate that worker cell. Oh my God, this is boring. Let's do something different. So at the bottom, they built a few drone cells. Okay, bees playing with them. Okay. Now, can drone brood be too much of a good thing? Here's our brood, but what are we looking at? All drones. Look at how nice that pattern is. All drones. Getting ready to swarm. Getting ready to swarm. Unfertilized female. Okay, initially we said something else, but now we're talking, this is a queen laying eggs, quite normally. But the eggs are all drones. Okay, so yeah, too much of a good thing. This is a colony with a perfectly good queen, except she has run out of sperm or whatever is happening. The eggs are exiting her body without being fertilized. That a good condition? Now, what are we going to do with this colony? Yeah, we're going to try to do everything in the world that we can, right? Are we supposed to euthanize it? Can we euthanize it? Should we euthanize it?
Yeah.
We're going to try to requeen it, right? We're going to buy a $42 queen, Mart, $45 from the best breeder in the world, and we're going to put her in this queen colony. What's going to happen? They'll kill her. The bees are killing her. Likely. Not all. So what you got to do, you got to find this queen, kill her, then buy your $45 queen and introduce her at that point. Okay. So we got to read our book. We got to read our whole book, not just how page or so. Okay. Can there be too much of a good thing with queen cells? No, look how many queens are. There's about a dozen there, right? So what's going on? What's our interpretation? Swarm. But they have them in two different locations. Swarm and supersedure, can that happen at the same time?
Yep.
Gotta look carefully, gotta read our book. Okay? So what we initially say is, oh boy, that's a swarm cell, that's a swarm cell, that's a swarm cell, that's a swarm cell. Why? Because they're on the margin of the comb, right? But what is the base? How did that cell become a queen cell? Did it start as a queen cup? Or did it start as a horizontal worker cell that has then been drawn out and elaborated into the vertical queen cell? This is a little bit hard to tell, but in fact, the basis of these is or was a worker cell. So there is no swarming going on here. There's no supersedure going on here because the queen starts both of those processes. What is going on here is queen died, emergency queen cells. Okay. So we got to be a little bit careful as we read our book if we're doing just the one page. And of course, to get an idea of a book off of the one page doesn't work. The same thing here. But kind of the key here is looking at these cells, their origin, and then looking carefully. Yeah, that was not a queen cup hanging out down here. Okay, that was a little problematic, but that certainly in this row of cells, and this one too, those were ordinary workers. Changed to be things. Okay, emergencies queen going on. Can there be too much of a good thing of honey on our frame? A lot of honey on this frame. Okay, is this a good thing? Could be honey bound. Honey bound is a condition in the spring when the colonies need to expand and grow. And what's in the way? Capped honey. So they've got to eat or relocate the capped honey. If in fact there is an awful lot of honey in the way, where are they going to relocate it? Or are they going to get a sugar high by eating all that damn honey up so they can make room for the queen? Right? So yeah, we can have too much of a good thing. Now, I'll give you another part of the book that you're reading. You're reading this book in the fall months. You go open this colony and you read this frame in October. Good story now? Hot box frame? Yeah, good story. Okay, I'll give you another part of the book that you're reading. You're reading an outside frame. Let's say frame 2 or frame 3 in the top box in October. Great, right? Those bees are setting up for winter. They're restricting the brood area where the queen can lay eggs. And in fact, this brood area, if we look at the frame below it, in the box below, that sphere probably continues. This is part of the semicircle. We'll find the lower part of that semicircle in the lower box. It's a sphere, and they're pushing that sphere closer and closer so that they're going to help during the winter. So during the winter, these bees are going to move upward and eat that honey that's there. Now they're eating it now because we smoked the cow. So, they'll put it back after we close it up and the strap pass. Okay. So basically, looking at frames, what do we like to know? Is our brood healthy? Brood pattern okay? Is the colony queen right? So here's a frame, another one yet. Look at the honey. We've got some honey in the corners, a couple different kinds, some watery honey, some honey in bigger cells. We've got lots of bee bread. Look at this band of bee bread. Cap brood, got some unusual pattern in the cap brood. Is that a good pattern?
Yeah.
Yeah, what's wrong? What's going on here with this pattern? Look at the frame. Okay, that's not plastic foundation.
Oh.
Probably wired foundation. The queen investigated their cells, found the wire poking out in the bottom of the cell. She said, hell no, I'm not going to put an egg in that cell. And so there's your wire, your wires. You know, the manufacturer wires, the wires that were put in. Okay, so brood healthy, brood pattern, okay. We want to look at open brood versus cap brood or wet brood, the open brood. And we want to then read our book. What kind of reading does this give us? Look at, we've got an egg, we've got larva, we've got larva that's gone through 1 or 2 molts. Maybe this is the second day. This is maybe the first day, second day. Brand new one here. Look at, it's not even where it should be. So what's our read? What's going on here?
They're swimming in food, so
They're swimming, aren't they? Swimming in their brood food. Good sign, right? What happened here? Not much brood food in that one, right? So what's the larva doing? Went for a walk. Looking for food. That's why it's sort of uncurled and it's moving around. Okay. Queen came back and put an egg in here, although this egg may be ready to hatch. Okay, so except for one measly cell, everything is looking pretty darn good in open brood. So not just cap brood, but also open brood. Now, we're going to look in the open brood to try to tell if there might be things such as sac brood developing in the colony, such as chalk brood in the colony, such as European fowl brood. We're going to look at cap brood to see if there's a possibility of American fowl. All right. So we need to look as we're looking, trying to determine, does this look healthy? The colony look healthy? One, is there enough feed? And that answer is obviously yes, pretty darn good. But secondly, is there any evidence yet of developing some of these diseases? Okay. Brood food, white, glistens, it's in the C position, the amount of food, and not disease. And so the diseases we're looking for are EFB, chalk brood, sac brood, and IBDS. What is IBDS? What is IBDS? What's a good answer when I say, what is IBDS on your test? A disease. You're right. I don't know. IBDS stands for I don't know. Idiosyncratic brood disease syndrome. Idiosyncratic means I don't know what it is, but it looks like a brood disease. And there's a syndrome because it could be anything of a disease. Okay, IBDS. All right. Your colony, what are you going to do with this? Put it back and wish them luck. Go on, right? Looking pretty darn good. Only one cell seems to be having a little bit of problem, right? Cap brood. Bee bread. Capped honey. You like what you're reading? Like what you're seeing? What's the colony trying to tell us? So in cap brood, what are we going to look at? Is it a solid pattern? Are the cells of the brood, cap brood, convex? That is, they pop up just a little bit versus convex. They're kind of sunken in. No perforations in the cell. Perforation in the center is okay, means they're still capping it. But little holes like pinholes, etc. Perforation. The amount of brood is a nice solid pattern. Are we like to see varroa mites at this point? How are we going to see varroa mites? This is your colony, you're reading this book. What are you going to do to see if maybe this is varroa mites? Look at the frass. Maybe pop cap. That's a little bit harder with worker brood than if you had drone brood in there. What are you going to do? Sample. Thank you. Yes. So I am the guru of sampling. I'm writing the honeybee healthy tools for varroa management. Sampling. We can do those other things, but the easiest way is to take a sample of 300 adult bees, wash them with soapy water or with alcohol, powdered sugar, and then see how many mites there are. Is this condition due to mites? Well, yes, it could be, but we're not done reading our book. We got to bring in an aid, sampling for the mites, to be able to tell better what we're going to be looking at. And then for disease, we're going to be looking for two American foul brood, the most serious of them, okay? That shows up to us when we're looking in the cap stage, right? The bee is, the larva is infected, but we don't see it until actually after the cap stage. So that's the stage we're going to use for American foul brood. And then the PMS would, to us, might likely show up as this, whoa, lousy pattern, but also the bees uncapping, if we've got any healthy stock, and most of us have some stock that has some healthy built into it. In most cases, the uncapping, the workers go around, they smell something different in a cell. What they smell is a mama mite that has gone in, and she now has youngin inside the different stages inside. And that's what the bee walking along those cappings is going to be able to smell. And then it's going to then start uncapping. Well, they sometimes have difficulty detecting which cell is the one that they're smelling that has that mite, that ugly mite producing their baby. And so often they'll uncap several cells in a row. What they're doing is they're looking for that ugly cell one. They may recap. We have some stocks that recap, but in many cases, once they've violated that cap and they started tearing that capping off, they're going to tear it off completely, even though it's a mistake. There's no mite in that one. They will continue uncapping it, and then they'll start chewing out the pupa that's inside. Okay, they're going to cannibalize that brood, but that's a good thing. Okay, so we could do that reading by looking at cap brood. Yes, question, comment.
Is that pattern just because it's coming to the end of the season and they're not being start laying as many eggs?
Remember the sphere concept. Would you want to see this towards the end of the season? The sphere can be all over the place during the active year, 4, 10, 12, 14 frames. But as we get down into October, that sphere ought to be coming really together. Does that look like a sphere of cap brood coming together? No, not really. Okay, so I would say no. It can look a little bit scattered. This is a colony that has a very, very active case of PMS. This is a ghost of a colony. Okay, it's not going to survive winter. The chances are, the greater chances are, it's not going to survive winter. With bees, you can never say never. Especially
The scattered pollen. So it looks like, or the bee bread,
the
right?
bee bread.
It appears to be also scattered.
Yes.
Is there a specific reason for that, or is that just happenstance?
Again, with this PMS, because the bees have been fed on, a number have been fed on by the mites, they get a little schizophrenic with their behavior. They're foraging earlier, and so we often get this, instead of nice solid in an area for a reason, put all the bee bread there, you get this scattered. So that's another indicator.
What's PMS?
Parasitic mite syndrome. And syndrome means, again, something is happening, but we can't necessarily say it this thing, okay? All righty. So, well, we've gone through our, so what would you do with this cow? Management choice. I've already said it twice.
Kill it.
Kill it. Euthanize it. But we're beekeepers, we're not going to do that. There's still bees in here, there's still brood in here, there's pollen in here, there's honey in here. We're going to try to save it, right? Of course we are. Good luck. How do we do it? Good luck. Some of them might survive. Gonna be weak colonies in the spring, but it might survive. It's a ghost of a colony. Brood pattern, okay. Yeah, ugly, isn't it? It could be diploid, queen mated with a brother. It could be. Remember, if you were here for the Julia's talk, it could be that, but it also could be an example of not very definite with your answers here. What might we be looking at? What does our book say? You bought that $45 queen. Is she any good? Okay, you bought that $45 hygienic queen.
Oh. ripping cells apart.
They're ripping cells apart. These bees are trying to save the ship from sinking. They're trying to get rid of those nasty mites that are in the house. Will they succeed? They've got to raise enough bees to live 6 months. They've got to raise the fat ball bees. And they may, by getting rid of these diseased pupa that are in these cat cells, they might be able to do it. Okay? So it depends how many bees are still there. How much honey do they have? And we're beekeepers, we're going to try to save the colony. Okay? Can there be a good spotty brood pattern? We just said that was ugly, that was not good, but could there be a good brood spotting pattern? Yeah, okay, so what if we see like here and here and here and here? Okay, so not too many. They're uncapping some in here because there's some bees smell mites in there. But are they uncapping a lot of the cells? They're uncapping some of the cells. So it could be, in fact, yes, the hygienic stock, the bees are trying to save themselves. We fight mites. We fight mites with one arm tied behind our back. We've got to have better bees to be able to fight the mites with us. We can't fight the mites all by ourselves. If we're on a pattern of just throwing a chemical at them, we're on a path to failure. That is not going to save us in our beekeeping. Okay, it can be a temporary crutch to get through a period of time. We've got to have bees better able to do the fight. There are some stocks, that more stocks are becoming more and more available in terms of having better bees. Okay, it's all about the mites. The bee PMS pattern symptoms we see in the fall, we'll see snot brood. Snot brood simply means, actually, we're going to break. This probably isn't good night. It's called snot brood because it looks like in a cell. Yeah, little kids, you know, what comes out of their noses all the time, that stuff. That's what it looks like. It's a larva, developing larva looks like. Okay, keep going. Every spring death. So we might have to look closely. Okay. What is unhealthy or what is unnatural or smells or off color or out of place? Use all of our senses as we're reading the book, okay? Because it has a story to tell. Our hives have a story to tell. And in brood rearing, what we're trying to do is use all of those. Finally, okay, brood pattern, okay. Queen right. Is our colony queen right? Of course, the opposite of queen right is no, not queen wrong. Queen left. Yeah, okay. So this colony is queen right. All right. Yes, no, maybe. This colony is queen right. Yes, no, or maybe. Maybe. Anyone say yes? Anyone want to say no? Yeah, someone said it. I heard you. Really, I really did. Okay. Can you find the queen below? The queen is on this frame. Oh. I'll tell you also that the queen is marked. Of course, queens that are marked are easier to find. So you see the queen? Isn't it easy to find queens? There she is. She's red, marked with a red dot. Of course, some colors show up a little bit easier. See the green dot for the queen. So, do you need to see the queen? No? Anyone else have an answer? Maybe? Yes?
You're gonna do
I had a lot of maybe before. What we could do a bite count? We're gonna do a mite count, better know where your queen is. You don't want to count mites on the queen's body. Not after she's been through that alcohol wash. You need to see eggs. Need to see eggs. So do you need to see queen? No. As you're reading your book, you need to see eggs. Okay. Now with our eyesight, yeah, you know, we can go for the young larvae, those 1 to 2 day old larvae. Okay. Why not cat brood? It's several days perhaps since the queen has been there. Okay, so no, the good answer. We do not need to see it. When we read colony string, we'll often see this. So I pull the frame out. So last question, how many Are there enough adult bees? Are there 2,000 adult bees on this side? Are there 1,000? Are there 750? Are there 500? Multiple choice. There's no middle one, so you're really, you're gotta go what, high, low, hit the middle. Okay, let me make it a true false. I'll take 2 away.
Take it out. Oh, man,
I got 750, I got 1,000 and 750. Okay. It didn't come up. There are 767 bees. How do I know that? I blew it up on the computer, put a dot on every one of the computers told me that. Okay. All right. Which is easier to read, that frame or that frame? A, B. This is your eye test. A, B, I, A, B. A, because we've shaken the bees off of it, right? Okay. Seasonal frame reading, what's going on here? What season are we looking at? Cap brood. Open brood likely, cap brood, lighter color. Spring. Sphere, expands. She was twice on this frame, okay? Spring frame. Reading brood cycles there. They've walked on this middle and there in the middle more. Okay, one back easier. Not to do that. So you see it's a bit darker. They've walked on it a lot more. Okay. Spring frame. Spring, summer, fall, winter, summer, full frame. Spring, summer, fall, fall. So it'll vary from the frame. And here's my last one. And oops, spray.
Is that a super frame and a deep box?
A super frame and a deep box. What did the bees do? They'll drone home. And now I'm gonna take that off and feed it to the chickens. I got happy chickens. And I just did mite control, flattening the mite growth curve by having them raise drones and then eliminating the larger number of drones themselves by getting rid of the drones. Thank you for your attention. Good book, read a good book.
Right now, I think there's like a 30-minute break.
Okay,
But actually, it's only 25 minutes because
I went over.
Dewey demanded that time. No, he had such a great.
You flatter me. Thank you, Al.
You're good.
Thank you, folks, for tolerating that.